Good morning. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's always good to be back. No name, Senator, other species. Okay, Senator, you ready? Minute 31 na legislature Guam is called to order. Senator Respicio, you're recognized for a motion to adopt today's legislative session agenda.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We adopt today's legislative session agenda dated March 14, 2011.
On the motion, without any objections, so ordered. Senator, on other motions to delay some items 2 to 5.
Madam Speaker, I move that we delay items 2 to 5 on the session agenda.
On that motion, without any objections, so ordered. Going to ask the clerks if you can please take roll call.
Senator Tom Ida.
Here.
Senator Tony Ida. Senator Blas. Vice Speaker Cruz. Senator Duenas. Senator Guthertz.
Present.
Senator Mambini. Senator Mooney Barnes. Senator Palacios. Senator Pangilinan. Senator Respicio.
Present.
Senator Rodriguez. Senator Silver Tahiran. Speaker Wampat.
Present.
Senator Yamashita. Madam Speaker, I wish to report there is a quorum.
Thank you very much. Majority Leader, a motion to waive items 7 to 11.
But before that, Madam Speaker, I move that we excuse the Vice Speaker from
On the
today's.
motion then, without any objections, so ordered.
And my next motion is to move items 7 through items 11 of the session agenda.
On that motion, without any objections, so ordered. On introduction and first reading.
Madam Speaker, on the introduction and first reading of bills and resolutions, I move that Bill number 90-31 be given its first reading, as well as resolution number 39-31.
On that motion, without any objections, so ordered.
Madam Speaker, on motions, I move that all resolutions of congratulatory, commendatory, and condolence in nature and legislative certificates introduced today and for the remainder of this legislative session be considered first read and adopted to allow legal counsel to make technical corrections to add all senators as co-sponsors.
On that motion, without any objections, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next motion is to waive agenda items 14 through 18 of the session agenda.
On that motion, no objections, so ordered.
Madam Speaker, this time I move that we resolve in the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of allowing the Honorable Eddie Baza Calvo, Himagalahin Guahan, to deliver his first State of the Island address.
On that motion, without any objections, so ordered. So the legislature will be on recess to allow then the honored guests into the Senator Antonio R. Pinco Legislative Session Hall. So we are on recess. Minute 31 na legislature in Guam is called to order. We'd like to ask everyone to please rise.
Madam Speaker, the Governor of Guam.
remain standing for the presentation of colors and the singing of Fanogi Chamorro and the national anthem. The chair recognizes Ms. L. Taitigui to sing Fanogi Chamorro and the national anthem.
Fanogi Chamorro put itanota kantana tulog na itoro ilugar para iona para igloria abiba isla para iona para igloria abiba isla para toru e tempo e paz para hita zangin ni langit na bendición contra peligro na fan sa fuham Zeus protegis Guam contra peligro na fan sa fuham Zeus protegis Guam. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Senator Ada, can you please lead us in a phrasing?
Gininimastat kilom, ihinasoko, imastat kilom, ikonason ko,
Zani masigo kani nasinyahu, hu ofrece maisazo, para bairro protege, zanu defendi, ihinengi, cultura, e linguagem, aire, Hanong, Zanitano Samoro, ni irin shaku diretso gininazu stata, esti hua fitma gihilo e Biblia, banderang guahan.
Please remain standing as I recognize the Most Reverend Anthony Sablan Aperon, Metropolitan Archbishop of Hagåtña, to say the invocation.
In anitatas and ilahina and Espiritu Santo. Amen. Todo nasina na Zeus, una matungoy minalag mo gito na Sean, Zeus ninasin niya sa minetgud, tenemtum zantininas, Ginenhagum at ispapat sa minauling na autoridad, ilaisia manapanhuzong zanieneska mamamta. Almighty God, you have revealed your glory to all nations, God of power and might, wisdom and justice. Through you authority is rightly administered, laws are enacted, and judgment is decreed. At zuras an espiritumu mangunsehos a minatad nga, honorably as Edward Baza Calvo magalahing guahan, ni para fanay cuenta giman ciudadanos and man mailina oficiales estinatano por administración niya. Assist with your spirit of counsel and fortitude the Honorable Edward Baza Calvo, Governor of Guam, who is about to give an account to the citizens and elected officials concerning his administration. Sedi na isumaw niya gi administrasyon igwinan estinatano umakundusi gitinina sa usen maulik para manauto ni agihilului. Grant that his participation in the administration of the resources of our land may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to your people over whom he presides. Sedi inina ni ziniusan at tinemtomo na udirihi sa itsonya kumumagalahi para reglamentos animang gobernador mami. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct his work as governor for our rule and government. Olaras o ispia para mantieni paz, utsonig mona y para iminagop todos ciudadano, do continuat sumulia ni bendicion linibre penareos antininas. May he seek to preserve peace, promote national happiness, and continue to bring the blessings of liberty, equality, and fairness. En tazuzuti magalain mamias Edward Baza Calvo ni maintrega para ugwadia y politica na minaulig mami. We pray for our Governor Edward Baza Calvo, who is entrusted to guard our political well-being. Walara za uninasina dumispatsa y obligacionia gineni metgud na ininasinyamu dan honesto sinciso dan capacidad. May he be enabled by your powerful protection to discharge his duties with honesty, integrity, and ability. Looking at commitment da abundancia na zineasemu, dori man ciudadano nestinatano, za infam bendecizon gitiningo, zan infanyantos gimaos ginis santos na mandamientomo. We likewise commend to your abundant mercy all the citizens of this land, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your holy law. Walaras ay protejo ginananya zan adzo na paz ni tisine itano manai that después de ingese bendición estinalinala en fan maadmiti giadzo ni itahinico en tata zuresti giza hagu ni saina zenzus. May we be preserved in union and that peace which the world cannot give, and after enjoying the blessings of this life, be admitted to those which are eternal. We pray to you who are Lord and God forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
At this time, I would like to recognize the Honorable Eddie Baza Calvo in Magalayan, Guahan, to give his first State of the island address. Governor?
Madam Speaker, Chief Justice, and all those dignitaries, senators, all visitors, all guests to this gallery, and to those in the television radio audience, it's great to be back at the People's Hall. It's great to be back. Christine and I, Notch and Ray, have reserved a seat here in the front, as we've always done, including our inaugural. And these are dedicated to the unborn, those who came before us, and our sons and daughters who are off at war. And Consul General Kimura, we also dedicate this place to those who have perished or suffering from the earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Before I begin, may I just reflect upon the blessings from above. 3 nights ago, the most concentrated waves of a tsunami passed just miles north of the Marianas. And I was conducting a cabinet meeting when a note was passed to me that a massive earthquake rocked Japan and a tsunami watch was in effect for Guam. My senior staff and I left immediately for civil defense to command the island's emergency system operations when the event was upgraded to a tsunami warning. I considered my duty as governor, and I considered the trust that you placed in me to keep you safe. And was by far the most concerning experience that I've had in this short term as governor. I had to consider the possibility that a tsunami may harm Guamanians. The government's brave first responders acted swiftly to protect you. The mayors and vice mayors, always the leaders at the front lines of this community, were with you. They accommodated every special need and answered your concerns without regard for their own safety. By God's grace, our island was spared. But our brothers and sisters in Japan were not so fortunate. Many died, many injured or missing. I know we have many problems on our island, but it is at the core of who we are to help others that are in need. Consul General Kimura, I have prepared a letter to the Prime Minister Khan, expressing the sentiments and the support of the Guamanian people. And please tell the people of Japan that their neighbors in Guam are coordinating a relief effort to help as much as we can. Madam Speaker, on March 11th, 1980, that young man, my father, took the podium at the historic Guam Legislature building across the cathedral to deliver the State of the Territory address. And he said, and I quote, "I believe that the 1980s will be referred to as the decade of Guam's emergence. With the help of this legislature and the people of Guam, we can truly make the 1980s a decade of a new Guam, a Guam which could become a bright star in America's future." And he was right. The 1980s, thanks to the leadership of my father, Governor Ricky Berdalio, Governor Joseph Atta, were at the height of economic development and wealth in this island. We can reemerge. We can be stronger, and we can create the Guamanian century of prosperity. But the most important point he made was that this vision of prosperity could only be possible with the help of the legislature and with the people of Guam together. The opportunities are right in front of us, but it will take a collaborative effort to bridge this island from its near poverty to the prosperity that we all want. As a gesture of my commitment to work with you, by the end of my tenure, we will be once again delivering this address at the historic Guam Legislature building. That is my commitment. That is my commitment. And with your senators, with your full support, I will work towards rebuilding the original house of the people. The state of the island depends on whom you talk to. For some, the prospects of the future are great. For others, struggling and living paycheck to paycheck consumes their daily life. And for the most vulnerable, the state of the island means nothing when they don't have a home, when their children have nowhere to sleep, when they are not allowed to be born, or when their disabilities are ignored. We are on the cusp of what can be the greatest economic upsurge in our history. Yet when we look at the island that we know today, there is a great divide between poverty and prosperity. We're told about a great future, but before us now are problems that hardly lend to our ability to focus on what's ahead. Today, my dear people, too many Guamanians are living in poverty. Parents are struggling on inadequate wages or none at all. As of the latest employment reports and wage projections, 11,500 workers earn the minimum wage. 6,500 people are looking for a job. More than 43,000 adults are not working, some of them facing medical challenges or disability. That is nearly 50,000 Guamanians not earning an income. And these are men and women with families to feed, and they have children to raise and elderly parents to take care of. But the cruel cycle of poverty doesn't afford them this opportunity. For the great majority of the jobless, they did not receive the education they need to qualify for even entry-level positions. They did not have the money after high school to get certified for a trade or to pursue higher education. And for others, they do not have the proper family models to encourage them to be self-sufficient. And this is how the cycle of poverty perpetuates itself. The economic situation for the jobless and the underemployed brought thousands to the welfare rolls. At least 43,000 Guamanians are now on some form of public assistance. Today, entire families are struggling. The increase in public assistance means fewer dollars for public schools to bring opportunity. It means fewer dollars for tax refunds. It means less funding for disease prevention and increased public health. All of this means less income for families to get by. There are 115,000 adults on this island, and unfortunately, 52,000 adults make less than $11,000 a year. And that figure is important because it represents the national poverty threshold. Nearly half of the people are not making enough to put themselves or pull themselves out of poverty. Income levels are not enough for families. And to make matters worse, the speculation in the market increased the cost of homes, moving the dream of home ownership even further away from the working man's reach. There are nearly 45,000 homes in this population of 180,000 people. Half of these homes are occupied by renters. And that earns us the unwelcome distinction of having one of the lowest home ownership rates in the nation. Families are saving what little they can to make a down payment on a home, only to see prices rise and to be turned down by a bank. They cannot afford land, they cannot afford construction, they can't even afford to buy one of the 9,000 existing homes that are vacant. Our people are suffering. There are neighbors, there are friends. There are single mothers and fathers deep in debt. with foreclosures upon them or struggling to pay their rent, and with just enough gas to make it to work. They're married Guamanians who work more than one job and hardly get to see their children. And we see what's happened to these poor kids. We see what's occurred when children fall through the cracks. Problems show up at school, their education is interrupted, and the cruel cycle of poverty takes hold. My fellow Guamanians, the strength of a society is tested upon the weakest and most vulnerable among us. I cannot in good faith stand here and tell you that the state of the island is strong when so many families struggle and so many children traverse through the circumstances that they have dealt with. The most important point here is that the state of the island today is the condition through which children are growing up. And if we want to break the cruel cycle of poverty, if we want to stop suffering and from becoming generational, if we want today's generation of children to have more than we ever had, then, my dear people, the time to act is now. I love that background music. The government itself, for the past 20 years, has directly contributed to the lower incomes and poverty. You work hard for your money, and every time you get your paycheck, the government takes a part of it. Every year you file your return, and every year you're supposed to get a refund if you've overpaid taxes. My first priority during the transition and upon taking office was to determine the financial health of our government. The preliminary findings of my fiscal team disclose the alarming level of liabilities of this government, to include tax refunds. These tax refunds rightfully belong to you. The government has been using your money to keep itself running. This is your money. This is not the government's. Not since 1991 were tax refunds paid to you in the same year that they were filed. This lowered your disposable income and deprived you of your opportunity to spend or save. For 20 years, the government used your money to finance its operations and the deficit. And right now, it owes you hundreds of millions in tax refunds. The average filer expecting a refund is owed in the thousands of dollars. And none of this includes the money owed to private vendors. These companies provided goods and services to Guamanians, and the government still owes them. I instructed agency heads to look at their finances and report any prior unrecorded expenditures and unpaid debts. Preliminary estimates, which we are verifying, indicate that this unrecorded debt is in the millions of dollars. And these debts hurt many small businesses and may have caused some vendors to shut down or eliminate jobs. After a careful and lengthy review of the government's finances, it has become evident that the cash situation has escalated to a critical level. Almost every year, the government spends more than it's able to collect. And in the past, it was adequate to focus on the budgeted revenues and appropriations. However, because of the critical cash position, our focus now has to be on the careful management of the cash we collect and the debts that we pay. And this is why I instructed the Department of Administration to develop and maintain a cash flow projection. This is an integral part of our cash management policies and decision-making. And thankfully, we are working with partners to help alleviate the cash burden. Within the past 2 months, we've negotiated a manageable payment plan to repay the money previously transferred out of the Solid Waste Operations Fund. We worked with the federal management team overseeing mental health, the permanent injunction, to push back the scheduled payment dates by 60 days. These agreements have enabled the government to avert payless paydays. And finally, during my recent trip to Washington, D.C., we successfully prevented losing up to $75 million of ARA funds for the Department of Education. I look forward to working with the legislature to finalize reprogramming of this money. I want to thank you so much, Senator Pangilinan, with working collaboratively and also pointing this issue out as well. We must strengthen our financial posture in preparation for the anticipated economic surge. There is a fiscal gap between our present financial situation and the expected growth in revenues as a result of the buildup. We must confront the current budgetary and cash shortfalls and work collaboratively to overcome the fiscal challenge. 2 months into this administration, our fiscal team has had the tremendous responsibility of finding out just how much this government owes Guamanians. This is not an easy task. It is extremely complex. The public auditor has been assisting us in this regard and is close to finalizing her validation of certain liabilities. However, based on the preliminary draft report from the public auditor, it appears that the deficit grew by approximately $84 million to the level of $349 million as of September 30th, 2010. I earlier stated that the major component of the deficit is the tax refunds. We also owe millions due to businesses, daycare centers, nonprofit organizations, and many others that depend on those payments to meet their day-to-day cost of living. In addition, we still owe millions to the COLA class recipients with interest that continues to accrue. This government owes money to the permanent injunction, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and the list continues and goes on and on. All of these liabilities existed when we got into office. The cash available to pay these liabilities was negative, which was further compounded by the need to repay borrowings of restricted and special funds that occurred in the prior year. And that is why, my dear people of Guam, I have been saying that a cash crisis does exist. And further details will soon be released in a forthcoming public auditor's report. And despite the magnitude of the existing fiscal challenges, we believe that there is a way forward with a new direction. There are options to help that include reordering our liabilities, making investments in revenue and taxation to improve collections, which will enhance our existing revenue streams, working collaboratively with the legislature, the Chamber of Commerce, and all stakeholders to plug the holes in our existing tax systems, and to determine whether we should explore a new system to replace the gross receipts tax. Considering government reorganization to reduce costs, considering alternative means of delivering existing government services. Our commitment to hold government finances structurally balanced only works moving forward. It does nothing to pay off what we already owe. We can't just pretend that the deficit, now estimated to be nearly $350 million as of September 2010, will disappear. We have to get rid of the deficit in order to stabilize the finances. We need to pay your tax refunds. Otherwise, a balanced budget for the next fiscal year will mean nothing. The prior debts will just continue eating into our current year obligations, our current year revenues, which are already allocated for our current year obligations. There are only 4 options before us. We can either raise $349 million, we can cut $349 million in spending, we can borrow $349 million, or we can do a combination of any of those options. And I am proposing a strategic plan to stabilize our finances starting now. And this is what I'm proposing. First, I won't raise taxes. People should not have to bear the burden of the government's inability to live within its means. But we are aggressively seeking both cash and revenues. The Department of Revenue and Taxation is pursuing a Guam property assessment system, computer-assisted mass appraisal and tax mapping projects. Together, these improvements to revenue identification technology will ensure fair and equitable assessments of property taxes. We are in the process of hiring more agents and revenue officers to enhance enforcement, to aggressively collect delinquent taxes, and to audit industries for leakages. And we believe these efforts can raise nearly $40 million in revenues. We will also be going soon to the federal government with a renewed request to obtain reimbursement for the Earned Income Tax Credit. And this could save your government another $40 million annually. Simultaneously, we are working with the federal government to reconcile and to update Section 30 reimbursements. And this could mean an additional $5 million annually. As for cost containments, Senators, we are looking and holding the line on spending. But the structural imbalance of the general fund is a result of not enough revenues to fund the operational requirements of this government. And these are the results of unfunded mandates that the executive agencies must abide by. And these include programs and services that are largely underfunded and understaffed. We can't possibly cut $349 million from the budget. That's practically the entire budget. But we will make sacrifices. We will stick to cost containments over the foreseeable future. First, we stopped hiring for non-critical positions. Non-essential travel has come to a halt. Some agencies will decline legal services contracts, and others are consolidating rental spaces. All agencies are reducing the use of supplies, power, and water, and other communications. And I'm glad to see that you're calming down on the thermostat as well. What's 79 degrees? What's 79 degrees? The year I graduated, too. All agencies are reducing the use of supplies, power, and water, and other communications. All contracts will be scrutinized and canceled if found to be unnecessary. One of our most critical solutions is a conversion of services to information technology platforms. And this includes electronic health records and the routing and posting of government documents online. Our long-term goal is to offer more government services through agency websites, cutting down traffic on the roads and lines in the agencies. The efforts will reduce the general fund deficit considerably. But we still need cash to pay the hundreds of millions owed to you in refunds. The people of Guam want their tax refunds now. It is by far the single largest request that is made by constituents. Paying the refunds in full right now will without a doubt solve the financial troubles of thousands of Guamanians. Working on it. That money will stimulate the economy, increase home ownership opportunities, and assist those among us who need help the most. My administration is looking into financing the deficit. The immediate cash infusion will be used to pay tax refunds this year. And with a commitment to fiscal responsibility, we can fund operations and pay tax refunds on time from next fiscal year forward. The most important part of this plan is that it will help a lot of people at a time when Guam must be focusing all its efforts towards the future. Senators, this is true economic stimulus, and it could not come at a better time. I look forward to working collaboratively with you to make this a reality. Our island has been talking about an era of unprecedented opportunity for 5 years now, and the signing of the programmatic agreement brought that era upon us. We are no longer in the advent of the buildup. It is here. It is here. And the question that has loomed over 5 years, are we ready yet? That weighs heavily on us all. The decisions we make now will dictate the course of the buildup. But most importantly, it will set the stage for either Guamanian prosperity or poverty after the buildup. So this is a question I have for all of us to ponder. How can we move forward if we're stuck in the problems of the present? This is the 11th hour. Prosperity is knocking at our door, yet we are not yet ready to welcome her. The government, by and large, lacks the service levels needed to foster a new economy and greater economic capacity. We don't have enough law enforcement and public safety officers. There aren't enough classrooms and teachers. The provision of medical services is sorely lacking. The system of care for people living with disabilities is incomplete. Roads, power, water infrastructure require overhauls. And this is only considering the service levels needed for today's population. Despite the lack of resources, you should know that the executive branch is achieving unprecedented progress on the few resources that are available. Government workers are being creative. Agency heads are demanding accountability, transparency, and improved customer service. While we are still some time away from our first 100 days report, there are some highlights of the accomplishments of this government since coming to office in January 3rd. And none of these include the hundreds of achievements made by executive branch agencies and our mayors. First, we ordered immediate cash containment through the government and cut spending in the executive branch. My chief of staff, Franklin Ariola, instituted a transparency policy throughout the government, removing any existing gag orders and directing the release of public information timely. Senator Tyrone, as you will be, I'm sure, as a journalist for life, I'm sure that you will be one of our biggest allies in promoting transparency and accountability throughout the government of Guam. We introduced 2 measures to protect unborn children. Thank you, Senator Rodriguez, for conducting swift hearings. I ask that these measures be considered and passed in session this month. Let's not spend another minute waiting to save the lives of unborn children. It is the lives of children needing foster care that is driving my wife's special project as First Lady. Christine is coordinating a foster care initiative to find more foster homes. We have a shortage. We have a shortage of caring individuals and families to make up for this demand. We need help. We established economic relations with Taiwan and Australia with trade missions ahead this year. And thanks to Congressman Underwood, President Underwood, Congressman Berdalio, and Assistant Secretary Babauta, 450 acres of land, including the historic village of Hilaan, were returned. We've received unprecedented commitments from congressional leaders and the State Department on a visa waiver program with China. We still got to work on Homeland Security, but we're working hard, and we have some allies out there. We invited Hawaiian investors to bring their money to our island. And in the last 2 months, the Guam State Clearinghouse, through the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, has cleared or is in the process of clearing close to $45 million in federal grant applications. Good job, man. He and his wife, Attorney Naoko Shimizu, are leading the island-wide beautification task force. We've also increased the fleet of school buses from 88 to 110, and we've made sweeping and long overdue changes at the Guam Memorial Hospital. The challenges at the hospital are many, but a new management team is in place, and we're also in the process of hiring a top-notch and experienced permanent hospital administrator. The current management team is stabilizing the finances and improving patient care. We paid the medical supply vendors millions in overdue bills, and we're allowing GMH to restock its supply shelves. And in a sign that the financial health is being restored, the hospital made gross payroll for the first time in many, many months. As for the recent controversy regarding patient care, let me just say this. I don't condone sensationalism, but when it comes to the lives of the people and the children of Guam, I will not tolerate anything short of excellence. There must be transparency and accountability in every profession of this government. What happens at the hospital and how its operations affect the patients under medical care is every bit a matter of public scrutiny. When we go there, and when our families go there, we are placing the lives on the hands of others. So to answer anyone's question on whose side I will take on this issue, I will always side for the patients. The patients. There are many families that are coping with cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and other afflictions. To many loved ones who bear the burden of disease and the financial expense of treatment, did you know the Medically Indigent Program and Medicaid now serve over 47,000 low-income patients who won't have health care benefits without these services? And I want to thank those doctors and those pharmacies who accept MIP and provide care to those who can't afford treatment. And as for our elderly, we are actively pursuing Medicare acceptance in the Philippines, where more specialists and surgeons are available for your needs. I also want to allay some concerns about response to your medical emergencies. We came to office with nearly all ambulances broken and sitting in the shop for repair. The firefighters and medics in the Guam Fire Department have been criticized, prodded, and persecuted. Yet tell me, how can they meet their missions to save lives if they do not have the supplies and equipment to do so? It upsets me that ambulances, the most important vehicles in this government, were left in disrepair while residents waited in their time of need. It baffles me that when medics would be made to take the blame for a problem that deserved attention from the very top. And luckily, the Guam Community College, in a display of interagency support, offered to fix the fleet of ambulances. I want to thank Dr. Mary Okada and her team, and my partner, Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio, who provided the leadership to see this thing through. And to my old friend, Senator Palacios, thank you for your partnership to protect the people as well. Thank you. My fellow Guamanians, your Lieutenant Governor was a proud police officer who roamed our streets protecting us. It is why I appointed him to oversee the public safety agencies. And he's doing a great job. He's doing a great job. We'll need his energy, his drive, and his love for public safety in the years ahead. Crime seems to be getting worse, and the buildup in population hasn't even happened yet. We're already short on officers in the police, fire, corrections, customs, and youth affairs departments. You have my word that the safety of the public always will be a funding priority. From drug trafficking to family violence, from criminal rehabilitation to emergency response and control of our ports, we will protect neighborhoods, we will protect families, and we will protect the children. I know Vice Speaker Cruz is not here, but if you were listening, knowing that children are safer today because of your leadership, when I signed those measures strengthening our laws against sexual abuse of children, you said that my actions were a profile in courage. No, my friend, you were truly heroic. You stood up firm, and you fought for what you believed was right. You fought for children in the face of adversity, and our island is proud of you. Senators, the people care little of our political affiliations, Democrat or Republican. If you send me a fiscally responsible piece of legislation that will protect children, fight poverty, and provide for the less fortunate, I will sign it into law. This administration's entire focus is about the future. We will leave in the past the poverty that has burdened so many families. We will retire the problems that have afflicted our community. Together with unwavering faith in the Guamanian dream, we can leave our problems behind so we can concentrate on what matters most, our children and our future. On February in 1989, Governor Joseph Atta stood where I am standing right now. And in his State of the Territory address, he spoke about the sacrifices our ancestors made so that future generations could have more than they ever had. And he said, "For their sake, let good works, their compassion and concern, live through us and through our children into the fullness of the years, beyond 1,000,000 Guam sunrises, through hard times. It has been our concern for the welfare of our young that has sustained and nurtured us and kept us alive. We are but one more link in an unbroken chain of generations, united by one generation's love for the next. Let us forge that link in the chain together." And fate will have it that 22 years later, a woman answered Governor Atta's call. All her life, she dedicated herself to the preservation of a great culture so that future generations could know about who we are and what we can become. And while she was criticized and maligned for her passion for our past, we saw that was her love for the future that drove her to fight for Guam. And indeed she did. And with strength and courage, she took action to allow us a brighter future without sacrificing our past. My fellow Guamanians, this morning I dedicate the State of the Island Address to the silent courage and the kind-hearted heroism of State Historical Preservation Officer Linda Uggan. We told Linda we would be honoring her this morning, but humble as she is, she said she had to work. Her work is honor enough. Linda, your actions were a profile in courage. And for as long that I am in office, you will have all the support you need to preserve and to promote our culture. Guam needs you. You make our people so proud. And from those of Ladi Stones in Pagat and Hilaan, from Jigo to Malesu, and from Hagatnya to Pagu Bay, our ancestors are smiling upon you, Linda. And if you listen very carefully to their whispers of gratitude, and you will hear them say, "Si Diyos masi, Linda, si Diyos masi." Linda will go down in history as the officer of this government who stood unwilling to sacrifice her principles, who stood firm until a solution could be found that preserves our heritage while bridging our path to the future. Under my watch, no government employee ever will be vilified or persecuted for having the courage to stand up for what is good and what is right. Government employees, I will protect you. Ray will protect you. That is our commitment. And if we work together to do what is right, no matter how controversial or unpopular, we can do right by the people of Guam. Democrat or Republican, political supporter or not, you are a member of the Gov Guam family. You are a member of my family. What Linda did speaks to the greatest values of the Chamorro people. With the weight of history upon her, she thought and she prayed, what is the right thing to do for the people of Guam? And as she signed the programmatic agreement, she bridged the past to our future. Those ancestors of ours, they may not have had an air condition, but they didn't have to wear suits either. The laddie stones of Ilaan are remnants of what used to be. Imagine those pillars of strength hundreds of years ago. Bring to life the illustration of those lati. They stood together on our western shores with homes filled with Chamorros, prosperous and innovative. Off the coast flew the fastest sea vessels in the world, proudly built by the hands of the people of Guam. Those laddie stones are more than signatures of our past. They are reminders of who we are and what we can become. They are silent markers of strength and ingenuity, withstanding centuries of change, calamity, and yes, colonialism. And they stand there not for us to simply watch as life goes by. Our ancestors did no such thing. They were men and women of action. They did what I call on all of us today. Embrace the future. Embrace tomorrow. Today, the military buildup is upon us. $1 billion in projects will soon start, enhancing this economy. But beyond this decade of expansion, which will result in a large increase to our population, the Marines that come from the sea, and just think about it, the Marines that are coming now are from the same unit that came to liberate our grandparents, and they will return to Guam. The federal government made significant concessions to us recently. Much of this was a result of commanding negotiations by my chief policy advisor, Arthur Clark, because through the programmatic agreement, we preserved Pocket Village and caves, and we brought unprecedented resources to historical preservation efforts. Senator Guthertz, please stand up and be recognized by the people of Guam for your leadership through this historic time and an undying commitment to the preservation of our history. When she has disagreements with me with utmost politeness. Sometimes even disagree with a smile. Soon my administration will be engaging the military on the return of federal land to Guam. We'll explore and seek funding for environmental and renewable energy initiatives, as alluded in the Pillar for a Green Guam. Senator Barnes, I look forward to working with you on ensuring that this buildup maintains the beauty of our environment and our island. And of utmost urgency is holding the military to its promise of a one Guam approach to the buildup. This promise of a one Guam approach, where community improvements are made inside and outside the fence, requires a serious federal financial commitment to this island. We need to fix our roads and our bridges. We need to overhaul the water and wastewater systems. We need operational funding to hire more teachers, law enforcement officers, medical professionals, social workers, planners, engineers, and many more. I have great faith that the military will seek to keep through in its promise. And for our part, to build capacity, we soon will be seeking the funding to outsource a program management office under my direction. All existing management office will take its direction from this new office. And the government of Guam needs the capacity to manage the buildup and the myriad of projects each agency will have to undertake. And more importantly, we can't focus on the buildup at the expense of daily services and future planning. A program management office of experts in project and community development can transfer new knowledge to help our government officers, ensuring sustainability in planning and program management beyond the buildup. Simultaneous to our management of the buildup will be our pursuit of long-standing federal issues which the Defense Department has agreed to help us champion. This includes war reparations, compact impact reimbursements, greater control of our exclusive economic zone, veterans claims and benefits processing services on Guam, visa waiver programs, and binding political status commitments. I'm so grateful to you, Assistant Secretary Babauta, Congresswoman Berdaliu, and Senator Blas. You have been an unspoken, a consistent, tenacious, and unwavering in your fighting for resolution of these many unresolved issues. Thank you so much, Senator Blas. Admiral Bashong, General Doucette, Colonel Loynd, and Captain Sparks, I want you to know it's been a great pleasure working with you. You've shown Guamanians great respect and deference. You and the sailors, airmen, Coast Guardmen, and Marines under your commands have lived up to the ideals for what this country stands for: justice, freedom, and democracy. When we talk about the Marines coming, we must consider all the Marines who are already here. And I'm talking about those Guamanians that serve this country and our island so well. Guamanians like John Gerber, who bridged our proud history with the United States Marine Corps. When the Marines come, I want to be the first person on that tarmac to welcome them and say, "Half a day, my fellow Guamanians, half a day." Unfortunately, as history shows, it is the larger federal establishment whose colonial mentality has degraded the people of Guam time and time again in our history as a territory of the United States. I highly doubt that over 1,700 Marines and soldiers who gave their lives in the battle for Guam died so that people that they liberated could be colonized for eternity. They and every United States freedom fighter fought and died for freedom. It has been 67 years since the liberation of Guam, and in those 67 years, we've had to march for our citizenship, which isn't even full citizenship. We've had to fight to elect our own senators, later our own governor, and our own non-voting delegate in the House of Representatives. We had to settle for an Organic Act enacted by a Congress without a single vote from the people it would govern. Our preliminary exercise of self-government through the Commonwealth Act was rejected. War claims were denied. And even the rich waters around our island, where Chamorros have sailed and fished for thousands of years, are restricted from us as other nations rob us of our resources and make billions of dollars in profits. But it is the waters in Guam that raised my ire just days ago. Congress, in the dead of night, and without even the courtesy of informing our Congresswoman, decided that it should make a profit on Guam by selling to us what is rightfully ours. I have news for the Congress that the water at Fena does not belong to you. I will fight to ensure that Congress does not sell us the water that has come to us from the good Lord from the heavens. Not one penny will be spent for what is rightfully ours. And if we have to, me and Senator Tom Atta and other senators, let's go march on Fenna. And if we have to, we'll go as far as the Supreme Court. We have to protect what belongs to the Guamanians people. Congressman Berdalio, please take a message from me back to my Republican colleagues in the House of Representatives. Remind them that our party stands against imperialism and the overreaching arm of the federal government. This, my dear people, is yet again a clear reason why we must exercise our right to self-determination. And I will be working with Senator Respicio and Senator Pangilinan on funding our long-awaited plebiscite. My administration will be working with Congresswoman Berdalio on securing a commitment to bind the federal government to honor its rights, honor our rights, in the addition to the promise to fund the necessary education campaigns. They made that promise, and we're going to make them stick to that promise. Admiral Bashang, General Doucette, Colonel Loyne, and Captain Sparks, please know that the men and women of the United States Armed Forces will always be welcome in our shores. You are Guamanians. You are Guamanians too. It is colonialism we detest, and self-determination is what we desire most. The build-up will move forward, and progress will continue, because unlike elements of the federal establishment, we are Americans that are loyal to the very tenets of this country. The military buildup cannot, by any measure, be seen as the height of prosperity in Guam. It cannot dictate the course we take to build our future. We cannot forsake our responsibility to the next generation to build a sustainable tomorrow. We cannot limit our children and grandchildren to someone else's plan. And I've said many times before, the military buildup cannot be seen as a be-all or end-all of Guam's prosperity. There is something even greater than the buildup, a responsibility much more pressing than the $15 billion in investments over the next decade. It is the education of our children. That is the key to our prosperity. This is the gateway to the Guamanian century. Children in today's classrooms will graduate into a decade of wealth that will end with the military buildup. In 2020, it will be beyond their comprehension if our generation allowed the prosperous times to cease when the last Marine arrives. Our children will wonder what we did to prepare them for the future. They will ask why we squandered an opportunity to leave them an island full of promise and reward. Let us answer those questions today, not as politicians or grand stewards, but as parents, role models, and educators. Speaker Juan Pat, your lifelong service to education is second to none. I want to thank you for the collaboration that you have shown thus far and your commitment to working with everyone in the name of our students. The greatest challenge of our time is to prevent the cruel cycle of poverty from spreading to the next generation. While we tend to the services for the most pressing in need now, our focus must be on providing for children in classrooms today. And this is our greatest challenge because of the perennial funding shortages for the Department of Education, University of Guam, and the Guam Community College. Without a doubt, these three institutions are the most important agencies of this government to the future prosperity for this island. And yet there aren't enough resources to hire the educators that we need. There has been inadequate support for their academic programs. Master plans were created over the past two decades to bridge children from classroom to careers and support language from the very top. Unlike any other community in this world, the economic prospects for our island are certain. There is $15 billion coming to this island, yet there is no plan to build an economy to sustain us after that investment. There is no projection of the industries of the future. There is no projection of the workforce needed to build those industries. Outside the education community, there is no effort to educate your children into this workforce. My dear people, this is our big opportunity. We can finally hand the next generation of an island, this island, a better island than we found it. In the coming days, I will be issuing an executive order launching the Classroom to Careers initiative. It will develop through an unprecedented collaboration of the community an economic master plan linking industry development to workforce creation through educational excellence. None of these three pillars should ever be viewed as apart from one another. They are integral and married to the next. A strong economy is a product of a strong and educated workforce. That workforce is the outcome of an education that is second to none. Senator Yamashita, I've always admired your perspective on leadership. It reminds me of my late speaker, Tony Mpinko's reason for service. It's about family. It's about children. And I can see from the concern for our children in your eyes that you will be instrumental in crafting this policy and you will be instrumental in ensuring its success. I look forward to working with you. By the end of this initiative, we will have a projection of the economy of the future and the industries that will drive it. We will project the human resource requirements to build these industries, identifying the types and numbers of career paths and jobs needed. We will give this information not just to our government, but also to the private sector so all of Guam can build this new economy. Senator Mabini, Senator Duenas, and Senator Tony Ada, we need your commitment to workforce and economic development to see this process through. We will hand the information over to a consortium of educators and analysts to build the governance and curriculum that will educate children into this future. Key to this initiative will be the University of Guam Center of Island Sustainability and the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors, which I will impanel soon. My office and my council will drive Classroom to Careers with the University of Guam. Economic growth cannot exist without a university empowered to partner with the community. The community involves industries, chambers of commerce, the Guam Trades Academy, consumers, the local and federal government, and regional and international affiliates. No other institution in an economy has the advantages and access to resources of our university. And under the leadership of Dr. Robert Underwood, it will be a breeding ground for those that will build this new economy. The university possesses every resource this community needs to realize the great future that we all envision. In our administration, it will be an indispensable partner in the economic policy of this island and the region. We must get our financial house in order. And because upon the completion of this plan, and by fiscal year 2013, I want the resources of this government marshaled around the children of Guam. It will be a sizable investment. But who amongst us can place a value on our desire to give our children more than we've ever had? We want them to be anything that they can be. Doctors, teachers, engineers, medics, nurses, police officers, business owners, manufacturers, exporters, flight technicians. We want to compete against the best in the world and win. We want them to reach the ends of the earth and to plant our flag in the farthest frontiers of space. And perhaps if one day another Guamanian follows in the footsteps of Commander William McCool, and she looks for her homeland from the stars above, and here's what she'll find. And she'll find from the heavens, and she'll look to that Pacific Ocean, and she'll see the brightest star in the sea. Everything starts with a dream. We are not so defined by our problems today that we cannot reawaken the pride of the ancestors within us. And anyone who read history, the Chamorros were a very, very proud people. And yes, we have problems. People are struggling and suffering. We're not a big nation like China or rich like Singapore, but we are Guamanians, and each of us rich in spirit and deeply rooted in a culture that is second to none in this world. I began my speech today telling you about the many problems that face our people. But there's even a greater power at play, a driving force greater than the poverty that people suffer. And that is the love and the charity that is shown so deeply in the Guamanian people. I see it all around us. We do what we can to help others, and even though we don't have much ourselves. I've seen the cousins and the friends of Guamanians suffering from disease that are raising money to get off-island care. I've seen you selling raffle tickets and collecting donations at the door for medical fundraisers to help somebody. I've seen you volunteer to bring hot meals to senior citizens who are all alone and have no one else to talk to. I've seen you tutor and coach children who've never thought too much about themselves. I've seen you caroling at St. Dominic's and giving presents at the hospital to bring joys to the lives of the suffering. And there's that gentleman that I saw on the Camry. I saw you park at the intersection of Route 3 and Marine Corps Drive as you fed a boonie dog. I've seen children whose future is challenged by the poverty of today, picking up trash, planting trees, and protecting our oceans. These are all the stories about the common decency of the Guamanian people, who give so charitably to others in their time of need. For those that are most vulnerable, it is the all too often unspoken story of their struggle to give rise to the true spirit of Guam. Let us be their voice. It is in our hearts where we find a deep love for all of Guam. Relative or stranger, friend or foe, The strength of this island is the character of each one of you, difference makers and living gestures of goodwill. No matter what we face or how hard times may be, we must have faith that God has anointed us to a special place in humanity. We were meant to make this our Guamanian century of prosperity. And make no mistake about who we are and where we come from. We are Guamanians. We are Guamanians. And there is something to be said about the greatness of the Guamanian people. Sometimes it feels as though we've been taught to believe that we need federal support or someone else's hand, that our way is primitive, and that the federal way is perfect. Quite the contrary. The world, through all its upheavals, could take a lesson from Guamanians, from our resolve and our faith, from our ability to see past the troubles and care for one another without hesitation. The late Governor Ricky Berdalio, in 1983, said, "We can remain as some might prefer that we remain. Simple island people with simple needs who can be placated with simple gratuities. Or we can fulfill the destiny of the ancient Chamorros and build a community that will set an example for the rest of the world." If all the world were a nation of Guamanians, there wouldn't be no war, there would be no drought of charity, and there certainly would be good food everywhere. When Christine and I are at home with our children, we count our blessings. And for you who dwell within the shadow of prosperity and hope, need not believe that your burden is too great to bear. As young as this administration is, and this legislature is, we will all do right for you and by you. Your burden will be our burden. Your prosperity is our aspiration. Your children are our hope. And your tomorrow is our every waking moment. Here is to the brightest star in the Pacific, the eternity of sunrises above an endless horizon of every Guamanian. And with that, I want to say thank you, Sainamasi, si Juosmasi, Panbenedisi, and Biba Guam. God bless you all.
Good job, Governor.
Please remain standing for the benediction by Reverend Roy Burke, President of the Guam Ministerial Association.
I invite you to join me in prayer. Following the model prayer presented by Jesus Christ to his disciples, I reverence the God of heaven, declaring, "Hallowed be your name." Seeking your direction, I ask that your will would be done on our island as it is in heaven. Please guide Governor Calvo, Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, and the members of their staff as they lead us during these rapidly changing and uncertain times. Acknowledging that ultimately all that we need is dependent upon you, I ask that you would give us each day our daily bread. Though Guam is a small island, geographically distant from many of the valuable resources that are required to sustain us. By your grace, the tools of commerce continue to supply all that we need. Will you continue your provision in the coming months of the Calvo administration? Jesus further taught that we should seek your forgiveness while similarly forgiving others who have committed wrongs against us. I pray for a relationship of peace and harmonious interaction between our island's executive and legislative branches, and even further, for the members of our community at large. Finally, I appeal to you for safety. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Deliver us from our own evil desires, which entice us to sin and lead us toward death. Deliver us from the plans of our adversary, the enemy of men's souls. Deliver us from those who would seek to harm us, those from afar and those from within. In humility, I confess that yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Senator Vespuccio, you're recognized for a motion to rise.
We rise from the committee of the whole, that we adjourn subject to the call of the speaker.
On that motion, without any objections, or like to, as the podium guests would march out, everyone's invited to a light refreshment next door. Okay, so I'd like the governor to please lead us in the discussion.